A lot of people now frame veganism as a higher or more evolved way of living, and anyone who isn't vegan is operating at a lower level of awareness. And I want to take a look at this idea through the lens of a reality designer. I'm not here to argue or tell anyone how they should eat, but rather to understand what's actually going on underneath it. This isn't anti vegan, and I'm not trying to convince anyone to change their diet. What I'm interested in is how people use morality and spirituality as identity and how that shapes the way they relate to reality. Because food for a lot of people stops being nourishment and starts becoming a symbol of goodness, of awareness, of being on the right side of things. And one of the main arguments that always comes up from vegans is you're killing an animal that has feelings. That's true. An animal dies, and there's no way around that. And that's exactly why this argument is so emotionally powerful, but also where it becomes philosophically limiting. From a reality designer perspective, the first thing you have to accept is something simple but uncomfortable. Life consumes life. There is no version of this reality where this isn't true. Plants are alive, ecosystems are alive, microorganisms die so food can exist. Even a vegan lifestyle requires death somewhere in the system. You don't get to opt out of that. So the question isn't how do I avoid death? The real question is how consciously am I participating in a system I cannot escape? And this is where a lot of modern spirituality leans towards purity, pure diets, pure identities, pure morale, positioning. But purity isn't the same thing as awareness. Sometimes purity is just distance from discomfort dressed up as enlightenment. Reality designers aren't trying to feel clean. They're trying to be aligned with reality, with systems, and with consequences. Another argument that often comes up is if you live in a first world country, you should eat vegan because it's better for the world. And honestly, this is one of the stronger arguments. If you're looking strictly at industrial factory farming, emissions, and large scale harm, then yes, choosing plants over industrial meat can absolutely seem like the better option. But from a reality designer's perspective, the problem isn't that this argument is wrong, it's that it's incomplete because it assumes that there are only two choices, industrial meat or industrial plants. But reality doesn't work in binaries. A globally shipped vegan diet built on monocropping, soil depletion, chemical fertilizers, and a long supply chain can be just as destructive as factory farming. At the same time, localized food systems, whether plant based, or animal based, or a mix of both, can be regenerative, sustainable, and deeply aligned with the land they're part of. Reality doesn't respond to labels, it responds to systems. Another ethical argument vegans often make is that animals are here with us, not for us, that animals are enslaved, and that just because humans are more intelligent doesn't give us the right to dominate or exploit other beings. And I think this argument comes from a good place. Modern systems have treated animals as commodities, not as living beings within an ecosystem. But where this framing starts to break down is when all participation is labeled as enslavement. Every species exists within a web of dependency. Plants, animals, fungi, microorganisms, nothing survives alone. The issue isn't participation, the issue is unconscious participation. There's a difference between industrial exploitation and reciprocal relationships. Intelligence doesn't grant exemption from reality, it grants responsibility to design better systems. And eventually, the conversation almost always circles back to this. At the end of the day, you're still killing an animal that has feelings. And yes, that's true. But the statement assumes that the highest ethical position is the absence of visible harm. That if you distance yourself far enough from death, you've transcended it. But reality doesn't work that way. Life doesn't operate on innocence, it operates on exchange. Plant agriculture kills animals, habitat destruction kills animals, harvesting crops kills animals. The difference isn't whether life is taken, it's how visible that death is and whether you personally have to confront it. And this is where hierarchy quietly forms. Because the more removed someone is from death, the easier it is to claim moral superiority. Reality designers don't measure ethics by comfort, they measure it by honesty. This is usually where protein gets brought up. Well, you can get all your protein you need from plants, And I agree you can, but availability doesn't automatically equal obligation. What works for one body, one environment, or one ecosystem isn't universally optimal for all. Reality is contextual. It's not a one system fits all. And if this were only about nutrition, it wouldn't come with claims of higher consciousness or spiritual ranking. But it does, which tells you this conversation really isn't about food. It's about hierarchy. And another common tactic vegans use is asking, would you eat a dog or cat? And this question isn't logical, it's emotionally charged. Dogs and cats aren't morally different animals, they're culturally different symbols. In some cultures, dogs are food, and other cultures, cats are considered sacred. And others, pigs are companions. And confusing cultural conditioning with universal ethics is where the argument falls apart. Reality designers separate emotional reaction from systematic truth, and this is the pattern underneath it all, a hierarchy based on distance from death, a hierarchy based on morale identity, a hierarchy where the person who avoids the most visible harm gets to feel the most evolved. But true awareness doesn't need comparison, it doesn't need a ladder. From the reality designer's perspective, food isn't a moral symbol, it's a relationship with life, with death, with energy exchange, with responsibility. Pretending you're outside that relationship doesn't make you more conscious. It just means you're not looking all the way. So when you zoom out, the question isn't whether veganism is right or wrong. The real question is whether turning a personal choice into a moral hierarchy actually reflects higher consciousness or just a more socially acceptable form of superiority. From a reality designer's perspective, awareness isn't about what you avoid. It's about how honestly you engage with systems you're a part of. Life consumes life. Consciousness doesn't move us from that. It makes us responsible for how we participate. Reality doesn't care what label you wear, it responds to alignment, responsibility, and action. So instead of asking, am I morally superior? Maybe the better question is, am I in a right relationship with the reality that sustains me? If this sparks something for you, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, not debates, just honest reflections. And if you want to keep exploring ideas like this and learning how to design your life with more intention, you can subscribe, like this video, or join a community. And if you made it this far, I really appreciate you. That tells me you're willing to sit with nuance. And that's where the real awareness actually begins. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll be back with another one soon.